our panel tonight. John Turek, Deb Keiser, and Mark Henning. All have been growing roses for a while. I think John's probably been growing them the longest.
Yeah, going on 50 years.
Yeah. So, but they're all very experienced, very knowledgeable, so start thinking about what you want to ask them, but I'm going to start out with some questions here first. I'm going to ask you, we're going to go by color class, and what is your favorite rose in that color class? Red, pink, yellow, white? So who wants to start? We'll start with you, Mark, or John? Or Deb?
I'm thinking which red one. Well, I guess my favorite roses are the bicolors ones, which got the red, the pink, and the yellow in it.
One from each one of those.
You want one each?
Yes, I do. Not just one.
Okay, I guess my favorite red one would be Mr. Lincoln. And the main reason why, because I like the scent, I like its shape and its form, because I do exhibiting, that's not coming out right. So that one, and then another one is Lasting Love. It's not quite red, it's more of a deeper pink or whatever it is. And I have to stop and think, because normally I don't pick out a favorite rose.
Well,
to me, they're all the same.
I'm going to ask you another question pretty soon.
But the one that really I was impressed with is Gorgeous. I'm not sure, it was a new variety that came out last year. I got it at Donahue's. And the colors in that one are so well blended, and they just stand out. I mean, that rose, it's got a beautiful exhibition stage to it, but it just, that the colors, it just stands out. And I was so impressed with it. I'm glad I bought it. So I'll cross my fingers it'll make it through the season. But that would be my favorite rose right there.
You don't have a yellow?
A yellow one would be like medallion, or what's the other one that we got on order? The yellow one? Oh, Midas Touch. That's the other one.
Well, you're going with the older ones.
Yeah, I'm going with the older ones because I like the older ones.
Way older ones.
Yeah, I like the exhibition form. I like the exhibition form, so that's what I'm looking for as far as decorated roses, the ones that don't have the exhibition form. I don't.
You have a favorite pink one?
Favorite pink one? Oh God, now you're really testing my memory. Yeah, it's been since November I looked at these.
So long ago.
Believe me.
You're not saying much for your memory there, John.
Yes, it's true. Favorite pink one would be Sherman Roses. That's more like an orange one, or another one is Folklore. It's not quite, it's more of the orange color to it, but that is a beautiful rose too. And it's easy to grow. And it's got a lot of flowers, and it's just beautiful exhibition rose.
I'm talking about Folklore?
Folklore, yeah.
That's orange though.
Yeah, it's kind of orange. Depending on how you want to look at it, depending on your eyesight, so forth. So that's
Anything in white?
white. I like Pocha on the second. I think that's a neat one. It doesn't spot very easy. As far as shrub is the Morton Blush. That's another beautiful white rose, and that's a shrub. And that thing blooms forever. You know, it starts in spring and it just goes all the way through frost. I think I have a promise with that one. And I got quite a few because they're easy to grow too. So there's probably about 6 of those, at least good 6 of those around and so forth, so.
Okay, Deb?
Well, I have a little advantage on this because I'm a consulting Rosarian. In January, consulting Rosarians were contacted send their list of their favorite, or their actually our ones that we refer, garden hardy roses, or winter hardy for our area, or work the best for our area, and semi-hardy roses. And we were actually supposed to submit 10 total, but I kind of broke it up, and because a lot of people lived in warmer climates, they were just sending 10 or 20 of one thing. And I broke mine up because I have favorites of both kinds. The winter hardy ones, and I have the semi-hardy ones like Touch of Class, which I just love. That's an orange. But if you get a chance, my favorites are right here. My recommendations for winter hardy roses and for semi-hardy, and these are my photos that I sent with too. But there's my favorite peach color one, Mother of Pearl. We've had it for years at the Rose Garden since it probably first came on the market. I keep adding plants of it as I can buy them. Sometimes it's really hard to get them, not from our vendors because they're out of stock. They're very much in demand. But I think we now have 5 that I've been able to get. And every time I walk in that garden, there's blooms on them. They are the most amazing roses and beautiful roses. And that's not a hardy one, but I call it semi-hardy because we give it a little winter protection, and it makes it through pretty good. Touch of Class, I've been in the rose garden up there almost 20 years. This rose was planted prior to my being in there. And it winters through every year with protection, but it's on a corner bed in the back of the rose garden. But corners can always be something where they can get cold because we have raised bricks this side. And so Touch of Class to make it through, and there's a fellow that's been around and comes and looks at, and he checks that every year to make sure it's still there. That's his favorite too, so one of our visitors to the gardens. That's my favorite of that. Red, I have a few of them. I like Cherry Frost, which is it's a newer hardy one. Actually it's kind of pinky red. But it's kind of rose red, I guess, or rose pink. But that's one spray. The spray was this big, and it was so heavy that the cane was laying down on the ground when I took that picture of that spray. And they are like solid, buds, nice rose buds on here. If you get a chance, I'll leave it back there, and you can look at it. So this was my more tender peach. My favorite hardy peach is David Slezak's Above and Beyond. It's an apricot color. Climber, amazing. And another one that's always in bloom. New pinks, I like the Pretty Polly Pink, also David Slezak. It's a polyantha, and like size of a real small shrub, but that's another one that it's always in bloom once it starts blooming. And there's also a Pretty Polly White and a Pretty Polly Lavender. Now the lavender has been a little touchier for us up there. We don't cover them for the winter, but we do mulch. And the pink I find to be the hardiest, followed by the white. And that would probably be one of my favorite new whites. So for white, I would pick that.
So my favorite red rose is probably Benjamin Britten. It's a very hot red. There's oranges in it, but I particularly like fragrant roses, and it has a beautiful globe-like shape and just the warmest colors you're going to find on roses, and it has a wonderful nose that will perfume a room. Another white that I really love and have not been able to find is called Wild Spice. It is a rugosa, but it's a very matterly rugosa. It self-feed deadheads and just was completely carefree. You just gave it water and it was happy and blooming all the time. I can't find it anymore in
What was the name?
Wild Spice.
It might have a different name.
Okay,
in council, someplace else.
could be.
Yeah.
So that was red and white. Yellows, boy. I don't grow a lot of yellows because they don't tend to be very hardy here.
Julia Child's a good one.
Julia Child is very good. I do also like a couple of the Austins. The Pilgrim is a nice flat, more than 100 petals that I like as well. But basically anything from the Austin yellows are going to be lovely. Pink, Duchess of Brabant is definitely my favorite pink. Again, it has a lovely scent, and it, so long as you bring it inside or have it in a very warm shed, it will be okay.
Okay, along the same lines here, when you're picking out a rose, what is most important to you? Color, form, hardiness, fragrance, what's the most important thing to you?
To me?
Go ahead.
I guess to me it's if it's a rose that I don't have, you know.
Doesn't matter.
That's basically what I looked at. Let's say like from the club, I bought roses that I can't get anywhere else. You know, like what's the Dave Bang ones, for example. Or I started buying more of the mini floor, or the mini floors, sorry. I'm starting to buy more of those now because of just because it's something new, you know. So I'm trying to get them to grow as big as I can get them to grow, you know. So that's a fairly new area for me. And as far as all the others, the hybrid teas for abundance. Like I said, Julius Child is a beautiful rose. I mean, it's big and so forth. And that's another one, I shouldn't say.
So essentially you're saying you have no criteria.
I don't have a criteria.
Other than if you look at it and you like it, you buy it.
Yes.
Yep.
I have a couple of criteria for, when I purchase for Munsinger Clemens Rose Garden, I'm looking for newer ones or ones we don't already have in the gardens there. And then also fragrance, because people just love the fragrance on them. I can't personally smell it because I work around all of that and then I will list them and everything. I can't smell them, but people tell me they're fragrant. And that's what people really like, is to be able to smell the roses. So that's for at the gardens. My criteria for at home is ones that we've tried at the gardens and they turned out really well, they wintered really well. I like them when they're in the gardens. So I kind of use the gardens in a way for a test on the newer ones especially. What does good there, usually winter's good at home too, so.
Mark?
With me, fragrance is the top. But then after fragrance, I would say rebloom is probably my second criteria, because if it's only around for 2-3 days, that's lovely, but
Okay, is there one class of rose that you like better than others?
Well, I probably tend more to the hybrid teas than the four abundance. You know, hybrid teas, and then I'll go to four abundance. And the graniflores are almost like a four abundant, but it's smaller. But my roses, you know, I can, like a four abundant can grow up to 4 feet with no problems and just, you know, full of blossoms. So, in your hybrid teas, they don't bloom as much. They have the long stem roses, but they're always in bloom too. They always say they cycle, but I don't quite experiencing the cycle thing. There's always a bud on that rose, for hybrid teas. And then, like I said, fooling around with mini flowers, those can really bloom.
Okay, switching gears a little bit, when you first started growing roses, think back now. What's the biggest mistake that you made?
Biggest mistake is where I planted them. See, when that was almost 50 years ago, I would have been celebrating my 50th wedding anniversary this year. And then the year we got married, then we bought about 5 of them, Jackson Perkins, and we planted them kind of by the house thinking there was better winter protection. Nah, they didn't survive the winter.
Okay, Deb, what's the biggest mistake you ever made?
Well, I started growing roses in 1986. It was the year our son was born. So that Mother's Day, my husband went to the local nursery, and he came home with this gift of 4 bare root, they weren't bare root, they were potted, hybrid tea roses. And they had told him that for the winter, just cover them with rose cones. Well, we did one thing right. We planted the 4 in a bed that we put right along the south side of the house. So those 4 actually made it the first winter with their rose cones and all. But what I did is I went out and bought 10 more, so I had 14. And the other 10, we expanded a fence out along our fence. Well, the next winter, all those with rose cones, someone had said, you gotta give them some ventilation. So we or I read that somewhere. So we put a hole with a brick to hold the rose cone on. And in January, there was a January thaw and it rained, and I watched as all my rose cones were having rain going in them. And that spring, everything was gone, including the 4 along the house. So I lost 14 the second year.
My biggest mistakes when I started out were thinking that you could buy those roses from the box store with the little square things and expect them to do well. And also not planning for the eventual size of the rose, buying with your eyes up, and then they get too crowded. Those were the 2 big mistakes I made starting out.
If you had a mentor who helped you learn how to grow roses successfully, did you have one, and who was it?
I think most of it was try on there, basically, and then my mother-in-law would help.
Deb?
Right.
Stephen Gessel, he was the rose gardener at Munsinger Clemens Rose Garden before me. He was a longtime rose gardener there. And back then, when I was first growing roses, I was working as an accountant for Benton County and Foley. So I drive home, or drive back from Foley, stop at the gardens there. I drive by to see if he was out there working in the rose garden. And I pick his brain a lot about things, about roses and how to care for them and various things. And he also was a Rose Society member of the Granite City Rose Society. So he and the other members there were my mentors when I was learning. So.
Okay, Mark?
I really didn't have a mentor. I'm a major introvert, and so going to find other people just doesn't happen. But I read a lot. I probably have over 50 books about roses in my library, and just voracious reader of things.
if you read books to learn about rose growing, what is the one you found most helpful for this area?
Well, that's easy, growing roses in
In the
northern
north,
climate.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is by far the best, for this region.
Right.
Is that the one that was put out by Olson, wasn't it?
Yeah, who?
Mhm.
Olson?
Oh, that's
Jerry,
that's-
Jerry
Jerry.
Olson. Oh,
That's
Jerry.
what
Olson.
Jerry
talking-
was another
Jerry.
mentor of mine. I used to pick his brain when I come down
Yeah,
here.
that's
to
the one
show.
they're talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
That's his book.
that's an excellent book.
Another book is, which is really good, is Growing Roses in a Tough Climate.
Oh, okay. Well,
Which is
That's
also
I'm
really
not
good.
familiar with.
And if you have a question you want to ask them now.
Going back to circling on books, so those are kind of like the main ones, but has there been other ones that have just been enjoyable to read about roses?
anything by Peter Beals, is it For the Love of Roses, I think, is his big one. He has really comprehensive books on the history and really his personal passion for growing roses, how it started with hedgerows of albas that, of course, in the marine climate of London and England work beautifully. That I will often go back to that set.
When I started at the gardens, they had some books there, and one of them they had was on the Sissinghurst Gardens in England, which are what Munsinger Clemens, that is the upper garden, and that one is our modern garden, which was our newer of the two. Munsinger dates to the 1930s, and Clemens was 1990, it was started. And when they made those gardens, they modeled them after the Sissinghurst Gardens in England. And so I guess that was fun for me to actually learn about those gardens, what they should look like, and kind of see how our rose garden fit within that. And actually just learning how they had planted and what they had planted early in the gardens and how that changed over the years. So. But other than the ones that were already mentioned, Growing for the North, those books are very good, too, good reference.
One of my favorite books is called Otherwise Normal People.
Yes. Yes.
It was published about probably 12 years ago now, and it details some of the more interesting people who belong to the American Rose Society around the country. Some of them, of course, are no longer with us, but there was Clarence in Connecticut who grew everything in 55-gallon drums that were orange, I think, and he lined his driveway with these 55-gallon drums, and she'd talk about, the author would talk about all these different ways that people had of adapting their hobby, and it's a very entertaining book.
Mhm.
Okay, anybody else want a quick?
Mark, what was that red rose is that a hybrid tea rose?
No, it's an Austin, Benjamin Britten.
What's it called?
Benjamin Britten.
Benjamin Britten.
Probably in my top 3 roses of all cultivars.
If you exhibit your roses, why do you like to exhibit?
Why? I think it's more of just a challenge. The other reason too is just to show the roses, just to have roses out there for people can look at, the different type of varieties and so forth. That's the main reason why I do it, besides the competition of the thing, is just to bring the roses, just to show the people, okay, this is what's available, this is what we can do in here, what we can grow here in Minneapolis or in the Twin City area. And that's the main reason why I show.
Deb?
Kind of the same thing. If I've got if I've got something new and different and it's been growing really well the year before and I've still got it, then I like to bring in different roses, I guess, too, because, you know, just sometimes, just like, John said, just so people can see that there's out there, and I know the other exhibitors like to see new and different things, how it exhibits, and I kinda do that too when I'm at the rose shows. I look for different things that we don't have at the Rose Garden in St. Cloud, and, you know, see what those look like, and, cause it's not, I mean, I'm shopping from a catalog. The pictures are always look real wonderful out there, out in the West Coast, but we don't always know what it's gonna be in Minnesota, so it's nice to see how they do at our local show.
Let's see. I think one of the things that motivates me for showing is finding classes that generally have few exhibits in them. I like growing challenging roses. I grow a number of true teas and some chinas and other ones that generally don't work well around here.
Do you spray your roses?
Well, I spray for a black spot, the fungus thing. And I kind of keep it every 2 weeks, I'll spray. But I don't spray for insects. You know, insecticide, I don't use that. If I have problems with spider mites, and the only time I have problems with spider mites is when they're in the greenhouse and it gets warm, then I hose them down. I'll take it, I'll hose them down, like maybe I'll do it twice, and then I'll wait a couple of days and I'll do it again, and if I get rid of them, because you can't get all the eggs, you know, you may get all the adults, but you won't get all the eggs. Aphids, that I do the same thing. The next one is basically the problem is with Japanese beetles. Last year I had a little bit more of a problem with them, and especially when it got windy, they would just come right in, and, you know, it'd get connected to the airflow, and they would just come right in.
I don't spray, we're actually.
Oh, that's right, you guys quit.
4 years ago, the
Yeah.
city of St. Cloud made a proclamation that that the city of St. Cloud was totally going to, all of the gardens and parks in St. Cloud were gonna be no spray. They didn't consult us though before they did that, and of course, we were starting to get Japanese beetles, and we had some black spot problems in the past. So, we just started IBM and, you know, keeping the bed, well, I always tried to keep the beds clean. I did that at home too. You know, if you've got drop leaves, and if I had enough volunteers, you know, at the time I had lots of volunteers, so master gardeners would come out or whoever had for volunteers, and they would picking leaves would be a lot of their, you know, I would have them pick off the bottom leaves if they had black spot on them. And I go quite a ways up just to keep the bottom clean. And we use soaker hoses so we don't have to splash up water on them. So, I mean, we just went real preventative. That way we had to because we couldn't spray. And I never sprayed insecticide. It was interesting to see over time with improvement of putting in roses that were more black spot resistant, using the soaker hoses and doing the picking up and cleaning of the beds. And, you know, we don't use the rice hulls anymore, we're just using mulch now, but we used to use the rice hulls. But, so we would have the volunteers or me or whoever pick up the leaves that fell and always collect them. I find that I think we're cleaner now up there, our gardens, that we're not using the rice hulls, because I think that kind of could harbor some of the black spot in it if we didn't get it all picked up right away or if it rained afterwards or something. And would wet the black spot disease and get it into the soil. But now with the compost that we're using for mulch, and we're mulching pretty heavily with that, it seems to be a lot cleaner up there, and just trying different roses that are newer and more disease resistant. You know, we've been getting a lot of them from Milan Nursery, through Star from Milan roses in France, and then we're getting the Cords roses from Germany.
Mark, do you spray?
I don't spray. The one thing I do though is in my drip irrigation, I have a vacuum fed fertilizer so that they get fertilized every time they get watered. And that seems to work quite well.
Have any of you used beneficial insects in your garden?
No.
We did a few in our greenhouse, but as soon as spring came and we opened up we had them in the winter, and so it kept our plants really clean, our potted plants that were in the greenhouse during the winter. But then, of course, we open up the windows in the spring to ventilate the greenhouse, and we lose all the beneficials. So it's kind of a thing in a greenhouse you have to repurchase them. But it really helped our potted plants come through, because a lot of our plants that are tender at the gardens, anything tender that we want to keep for the winter, they get potted up and with the soil they're in, and they brought in, so we're bringing in bugs basically. So we have to use beneficials or else something, do a total
Mark, have you ever?
bug bomb or something like that.
Not for roses. I have started using mason bees for my fruit trees.
Oh, cool.
Which has been wonderful. I hadn't had any plums before last year, and I brought the little bees in, and goodness, they made fruit. So.
What about fertilizing?
Fertilizing, I use both organic and chemical fertilizer. Organic would be like Bog's Mix. That is a good product to use if you want to use it. Organic is by Bog's Mix because it's well balanced. And I usually give them a cup in a high iron container, 16-inch, and then I'll give them a cup every month. And then half of that amount to the miniatures or the smaller containers. Then I'll use chemicals. I use 20-20-20. And I use that with my watering system since I have to water every day. So they get a little bit of that on a daily basis. So between those two, that's what I basically use. And then I'll make a special formula for alfalfa tea. And in there, I'll put Epsom salt, I'll put molasses in there, and I'll put, what else? Either seaweed, extract, whatever you want to call it. And I'll leave that sit in there for about 3-4 days, and I'll give that to each of the rows.
And you wear a mask when you take the lid off?
I'm in the country. I live out in the country. So.
No, I mean for protection when you first take the lid off that stuff.
No, because.
Oh, come on.
Because I mix it every day. I take the cover off and I mix it. And
Is
I
it,
put
if
it
you
back
spill it on your, like your shoes,
Well, yeah, I get
the smell never comes off.
on your hands, yeah, that's true. That's true, but that's basically my fertilizing program is right there. Maybe I do more than a lot of people do, but since I grow mine in containers, you're watering every day, depending on what the weather is. Like in May, probably if it's like in the 70s, I'll probably skip a day, every other day, something like that. But when it's in the 80s, they get watered every day, and I make sure that the water is gone completely through, that they're well watered. So it could take me up to 2 hours a day.
Yeah, easily.
So that's basically my fertilizing program.
Okay, yeah.
And varies.
Well, when we purchase new roses and we get them very wet and we pot them up, the soil that we pot them in, it comes from Mississippi topsoils in Cold Spring. they make compost there. They get the runoff from the chicken processing plant next door to them in Cold Spring. They market it down here as soil essentials. It's bagged and sold up there and down here and throughout the Twin Cities as soil essentials. So if you see the name Soil Essentials, they came out of Cold Spring, Minnesota, and it's really good compost. And they also make mixes. So they make potting soil mixes where it's potting soil with compost. And that's what we purchased a pot of roses in. So from the start, they grow like crazy in the greenhouse once they're potted in that. And then they're ready to go out. So I've been potting everything and starting them there because they get a head start in our gardens that way and they bloom a lot earlier. And so that they get initially, and then our other roses that are wintered over get covered with Mississippi topsoil compost that's put on as a top dressing for the winter after we chipped them, buried them. So that in the spring gets raked out and we just kind of mix it in, fill it in a little bit with rakes and shovels and things. And so that's our first fertilizer. And then I work in Bob's mix into the soil. And also I use a little bit more compost in some areas that need a little bit more fill in. But Bob's mix, and then if I can get it, we've been having trouble getting it. There was a product that we used to be able to buy locally up there. Came in bags that we'd buy it from I think it is up there. One of the local places that marketed to nurseries. And so instead of getting it in big bags, we could only get it in this size. But when you open it up, it smells like chicken manure. One of the main ingredients in it was chicken manure, but it had other odd things like bat guano and stuff. Happy Frog, that's the one. Little bags of Happy Frog. But then we decided after we bought out everything they had of it at that distributor. So then the next year we found it online. We could buy Happy Frog in bigger quantities. But I worked that in. First goes the Bob's mix, and then after that, the Happy Frog. And those two products are basically what they get early on. And after that, when it gets where it's like warmer out and we're not gonna have rain or anything that would produce black spot, then I do leaf foliar feeds with Mills Magic mix, the powder one that they've got made for using for foliar feed or for liquid feeding, the liquid feed version, but it comes in containers from Mills Magic mix. That's when it works really good. So we just basically do the organic feed and then we do the foliar feed later. But we have a lot of really, our soil is really fertile with all the compost that's been going into it over the years.
Mark?
I need to improve my fertilizing. The siphon feeding that it gets with the automatic watering is really all that I do. And you can see it because I don't have nearly the growth and blooming that I should be getting.
I got a couple fertilizer questions.
Mm-hmm.
One is, magnesium sulfate seems to be a favorite with show growers. And it's a micronutrient, and yet if you buy some of the commercial fertilizers, rose fertilizers, I use one out of California called Magnum. It's a Growmore fertilizer. Of course, it has magnesium sulfate in it. Is there any advantage, to spring application like so many people do, a tablespoon or two per plant when you're getting it in the food itself? And I know that what is a commercial fertilizer you get in a box?
Miracle Grow.
Miracle Grow, that has it in there too. And I'm just wondering, is that just to make growers feel good, that they've got everything covered, or does it really need more than what you can buy in some of these commercial rose fertilizers? And I've never really figured that out.
Well, usually when I mix my, Bob's mix, my organic, I put 50 pounds of Epsom salt. It's Epsom salt is
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
Right.
Magnesium sulfate's already in ours.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
it is.
it's already in the
I know
box,
it is.
that's it.
I know it's one, but I mix my own,
I know you mix your own.
so forth, so, yeah, I put
I
50
never
pounds.
figured that, really whether, I know it is supposed to help with the green of the leaves and, kind of the vitality of the plant. But, I just sometimes wonder if, the whole deal, more is better type deal.
Since Kim's not here to say it, the best thing that you can do is to take soil samples to your university extension and have them tell you what your soil needs. If you have a deficit, you need to put it in. If you have plenty of magnesium in your soil, you're just putting crystals on the ground.
And then I have another question for John. He's written several times about the microhesial,
Yeah,
and so I ordered it, and it comes into like a very fine powder.
mhm.
But the instructions I got aren't very good telling how to apply it, what amount to apply. I think you're supposed to make a solution. Do you have any magic ratio, John, when you put it on?
I just put it on, mix it in a 5-gallon pail,
Right,
and then there's probably like a
tablespoon? or-
tablespoon to each, and then mix it in, and then I pour it onto the rows. And that depends on how, it could be a gallon, it could be half a gallon of water poured onto it. And the main reason I use that is because mine are in containers,
Yeah,
and I'm not sure what happens. Let's say if the rose dies, does that die too, the microorganism, does that die also?
I don't.
And you have to replace it?
I'm always worried of shocking them by putting something too much
But I
in
think
a
it-
small container.
Yeah. Oh, I think it helps a lot. I mean, it's a big difference. I haven't used it for the last 2 years. I bought some for this year, so I'm gonna give it a dose this year. But I don't necessarily do it every year.
I wonder if it's more important, like, in new planting, with like,
Yeah.
using new planting soil or sterilized soil, where it'd be more important there, but I gotta believe you're picking up a lot if you're using, for example, fish fertilizer or something. There's gotta be a good concentration of bugs and stuff.
I don't know if
At
there
least it
is,
sure
there.
smells like dead bugs, the Alaska fish fertilizer.
I don't know if that does or not. I mean, I can't answer that. And then, like I said, the main reason I do it is because it does help the rows, help to extend the root system
Yeah,
in places where the roots can grow. Now, is it necessary for the containers? I just do it for and it shows, you can see the big tall four bandas loaded with flowers or the hybrid teas and,
well, I've been using it just because, but I have no way to quantify it. It looks, the plant likes it, of course, but I think it, the weather, of course, plays into it too. I mean, we had such awful weather just before the Rose Show last year with, 95-degree weather, so weather seems to affect everything.
yeah. Well, you could take a few plants, do it with, if you got 20 plants, use it on 10 and don't use it on the other 10, but keep them separate and see what happens at the end of the season. That's part of, learning.
I have another thing, problem. Crown gall, has anyone of you experienced, I see the faces. Has anyone ever experienced that before?
Yeah, we had it on one plant in the Rose Garden one time. And I contacted University of Minnesota about how to get rid of it. We ended up taking out a good portion of that rose bed, far enough around it where it was just one rose. It was on a corner of the rose bed. And they suggested removing soil, destroying the rose, getting rid of it in the dumpster.
I disagree with that.
And removing soil. We haven't had any problem in that rose bed since we replaced the soil.
Cause I've had crown gall on, not very much over the couple of years, but I just take it off the plant, sterilize the plant, and it's been perfectly fine because it isn't transmitted by roots. Okay, next meeting will be in April, because we encourage all of you to go to the spring meeting, please. And it's very worthwhile. It's a lot of fun. At least I think it's a lot of fun.